Hello, and welcome to Imagine Orem. This is your opportunity to help shape the future of Orem's State Street corridor. On behalf of the City of Orem, thanks for your interest. Your feedback matters and will inform how State Street grows and changes in coming decades. We've got some information to share, and most importantly, we want to hear from you. So, first, a little bit of background. Orem adopted a master plan, or long-range vision, for State Street in 2015. This plan was developed by a collaboration with Orem's residents, with thousands following the process and hundreds actively participating in crafting it. Orem's residents have a long history of taking an active role in shaping the future of their city, and the master plan is just one example. The master plan process was important. We need to know where we want to go as a community so we can take active steps now to chart a course toward the future we want to see. As Lewis Carroll says in Alice in Wonderland, if you don't know where you're going, then any old road will do. We want to know what road we're on. And we're working on all of this in large part because of growth. Our state is growing. By 2065, Utah will have 5.8 million residents, up from 3.1 million today. And last year, Utah County added more residents than any other county in the state. And Utah County is expected to continue to experience more growth than any other in the state in the next 50 years. Nearly 4 out of every 10 new residents will live in Utah County. That means we'll see more than 1 million people added to our county's population. And where does 3/4 of our growth come from? Household increase or immigration from out of state? Yep, new babies. Most of our growth is the result of homegrown Utahns, and we want to make sure that they have a great life here in Utah. So our region is contemplating questions like this. In Utah County, our growth could occur in a variety of ways. Which makes the most sense? Spread out across remaining open land? Focus growth in existing communities? Or a blend of both? What we're seeing on the ground so far is a blend of both. In Orem itself, growth could occur in a variety of ways. Which do you think makes the most sense? Spread growth across the city with existing neighborhoods absorbing significant new growth? Focused growth along commercial corridors, preserving existing neighborhoods? Or a blend of both? And Orem's visioning process a few years ago explored this question and essentially answered it for us. We want to preserve existing neighborhoods and focus growth along commercial corridors like State Street. And that's aligned with where opportunities for growth are. This chart shows how long buildings generally last. Homes are around for a long time. Neighborhoods tend to be stable. Other uses, retail buildings, warehouses, offices, transition fairly often, every 20 to 50 or 60 years or so, either being torn down and redeveloped or substantially renovated or expanded. At the top of this image, you can see the State Street corridor. The parcels in red contain buildings that are over 40 years old. You can see that much of the corridor will likely see significant change in coming decades. Tired commercial strip parcels, like the one on the left image, might be redeveloped into vibrant new places, like those images on the right, for gathering together, working, and living. And here's a simulation developed for Layton City to the north of us for one of their commercial corridors. They saw the change coming, and some of this simulation is already being realized on the ground. And here's an example developed for a regional visioning effort of which Utah County was a part. It's an example of tired, underutilized land transitioning into a place with a market, services, and a variety of housing and employment options. And here's another one from the same project that transitions from a warehouse district to a new walkable neighborhood, absorbing significant growth. That gives you a feel for some of the context and opportunities that those involved in the State Street master planning effort grappled with. And this is what we landed on as a community, the vision in a nutshell. Let's create 5 new districts that will focus future growth in Orem. This strategy preserves existing neighborhoods by focusing new growth in districts along State Street. It supports existing amenities and creates new destinations for families, friends, and our guests. It creates places for family-sustaining jobs close to home, and it makes State Street easier to move through but also beautiful and more pedestrian-friendly. The current effort, Imagine Orem, will focus on these 5 districts. And Imagine Orem is a great thing. It's a legacy that we can create for our kids and grandkids, one that includes reasonably priced housing options, jobs that support families, convenient ways to get around, access to goods and services close to home, and ways to be meaningfully involved in our community and fun things to do. And it addresses needs for housing. Housing costs are going up dramatically in Utah County. In 1995, you could buy a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house for $125,000. These days, that same house is likely to cost over $300,000. It begs the question, if you had to buy your house today, could you afford to do so? Many of us couldn't, and that gives us a sense of the growing need as our kids grow up and enter the housing market. As costs go up for large lot single-family homes, we begin to see a variety of other options that come in at lower price points, and that's important. Small lot single-family homes, townhomes, and apartments provide for the needs of a variety of households and stages of life. Because different households have different needs, here's a school teacher and an entrepreneur. They make $50,000 a year, just under Orem's median household income of $54,000 a year. They can afford a modest mortgage, perhaps an older large lot home, a small lot single-family home, or a townhome. Sometimes families start off without much income. Here's a stay-at-home parent and a logistics worker. They make less than 2/3 of our area median income and can afford rent of $833 a month. Or here's an iGen professional. That's someone born after 1995, the iPhone generation, someone who graduated last year and landed a great job developing software. She isn't interested in owning a home yet, but might rent a nice apartment. Or here's someone who works very hard but only brings in about $10 an hour making coffee. She can afford rent of about $500 a month. Different households have different needs. Another example, a 2-career couple who have been working for quite a while. Together they make $120,000 and can afford a $500,000 home. And here are some empty nesters, someone who works in a department store and someone who owns a small business. They can afford a monthly mortgage of about $1,600 to $1,700 a month. Some more empty nesters. Here's an HR director and a software engineer, maybe working over on Silicon Slopes. They make $200,000 a year and can afford a large home. And here's someone who's retired on a fixed income. She's drawing Social Security and also has made some investments over the years. She can probably buy a townhome in Orem. These examples illustrate that different households have different needs and that needs are different at different stages of life. Think about where you have lived at various stages of life, or about your family or friends and their needs. While we preserve our existing neighborhoods, the 5 districts along State Street can help ensure that Orem is providing the housing variety that our residents will need, no matter their stage of life. Reasonably priced housing is housing that costs less than 30% of household income, so there is money left over for everything else. Transportation, education, childcare, food, healthcare, everything else. Our State Street Master Plan also addresses needs for jobs close to home. We can build on existing synergy in our region. We all know about Silicon Slopes, a phrase that we use to refer to the tech growth at the point of the mountain. Well, the rest of the country equates that identity with the entire Wasatch Front. Orem is in the path of opportunity. The Wasatch Front has 3 historic centers of commerce: Salt Lake City, Ogden, and Provo. Now before 2000, that's the image on the left, most commercial office space was built in Salt Lake City and the Salt Lake Valley. You can see hot spots in yellow and red. Then as Salt Lake City land became more expensive and scarce, growth accelerated tremendously to the south and down into Utah County. The new employment core at Point of the Mountain is attracting a large share of the region's job growth at this point. And as job growth continues south, Orem is in its path. We can plan for jobs close to home on State Street. Finally, as outlined in our master plan, State Street is the heart of Orem. It is here where we can address needs for destination areas in our city, where we focus on being family-friendly, using land responsibly, and creating a State Street that moves traffic but is beautiful and comfortable. State Street can become our community's living room, in a sense, where we go to be with friends and family, to enjoy markets, dining, recreation, shopping. Comfortable places to hang out and spend time together. It's worth taking the time now to plan for this kind of State Street. And this matters for our kids, to preserve and enhance our quality of life today, but also to ensure a great place for our children and grandchildren. Our planning now enables us to be proactive together, to make good decisions now that will create the best future for those who will come after us. So the State Street Master Plan, the 5 districts, is the foundation of this process, where we move from a vision on paper to seeing the vision on the ground. And here's our roadmap, our next steps. We have our vision identified. That's what we just talked about. Now we need to have a conversation to refine it, to explore exactly how we want these 5 districts on State Street to function, look, and feel. What we decide together will inform an update of our zoning code, and that will lay out the orderly development of the vision on the ground over the next several decades. The vision is not something that we will see right away. It will take years for parcels to redevelop and the street to gradually change. So we're really answering the how at this point. We have a vision. How exactly do we want to see it unfold on the ground? The how we implement our vision matters, and we need to hear from you. Within that conversation circle on the previous slide, we have 4 distinct circles or opportunities for citizens to get involved. Right now, we're entering a period of evaluating alternatives. This summer, we'll refine our preferred options, and in the fall, we'll get to see how those options look in virtual reality. We plan to partner with VR junkies at the mall so everyone can walk around Orem State Street in 2050 and then share their thoughts. We'll come together to celebrate what we've imagined together and move into the zoning code adoption process. So let's get started. To begin, tell us a bit about yourself and your tie to Orem State Street by answering the questions that follow.